Raindrops, you asked, and I've answered. Yes, I am sitting with not only my good girlfriend, but she's the fan favorite who y'all constantly ask to return on the podcast. Yes, I am talking about the amazing Casey.
Oh my God, we're both wearing prison orange. I did not even mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it. I just realized what is happening. And what did I tell you last night? I'm like, I'm going to get a blowout for you. I'm going to get a blowout. I don't do that for everybody. It takes a professional person over an hour to dry my hair. I did this for you. I was so excited.
I love it. Listen, I love it and I appreciate it. And honey, that blowout is great. We are wearing our orange jumpsuits because we had no idea that, first of all, this is a super surprise that we're wearing orange jumpsuit in not celebration, because I'm not going to celebrate someone going to prison, but in conversation, because breaking news, Jen Shah got 78 months in prison. I don't know about UK. I had to Google how many years.
Oh my God, I did too. I had to calculate. Did you use the calculator?
Yeah.
Yeah. Loser. Yeah. Meanwhile, my kids would have been like 6.5 years, idiot. Yeah. I had no idea. Totally.
Had zero idea. Had to Google it. 6.5 years in prison. Kate, where do we begin in the saga of Jen Shah, who, girl, I don't know if you read some of the court reportings that was on Twitter. The biggest shock to me was she made it seem like she is still a cast member of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. But I want to hear from you if you think that is the case, if she is delusional, and what the fuck about her sentencing.
Well, when she was walking in, I saw the footage of her walking into the courtroom, and for a moment I went, oh my God, is that the most authentic moment I've seen of this woman in the existence of television? But I was wrong, because then I started following the feed, and my gratitude for those that were in the courtroom who kindly kept us updated. You guys did a great job. But then you start reading through it and you're like, she's still completely delusional. She doesn't think that she did anything wrong. She's been selling merchandise that says free Jen Shah. Her attorney, I mean, this woman should just like take a long vacation or think about taking another job, because to represent Jen Shah must have been enormously frustrating. I don't think she's taken any accountability. I think she actually took great glee in the audience that was at the courtroom. I don't think it actually bothers her in the least. I think this is not somebody who will be in prison in 2 years and thinking, I can't believe I wronged someone. This is a woman in 2 years who's going to go, I can't believe I'm here. I'm innocent. She's going to be telling everyone she's innocent. She will leave prison thinking she was innocent. I think she will leave prison thinking she's going to get a television deal. There's something fundamentally wrong with her.
No, listen, I have to agree. And it is so interesting because when the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City first premiered, I think everyone saw like, okay, this Jen Shah is a character. She is somebody who has studied reality television. She has been waiting for this moment her entire life. And it also begs the question of, you wanted to be on reality TV so bad that if you were doing your research and studying the greats, because remember, she said, ironically, Teresa Giudice walked so I could run. And she was referring to Teresa's infamous table flip, not even understanding the irony in terms of also meaning that she has to go away for, at least when it comes to Teresa, in my opinion, I don't think Teresa knew what Joe Giudice was doing. That's me. People can't disagree. But Jen's hands are dirty because she was actually involved in it. And to your point, Kate, I don't get remorse from her. And this is why it's so interesting. Housewives Twitter has celebrated the legacy of Jen Shah. Jen is innocent. I saw somebody tweet Jennocent.
What?
Yes, somebody tweeted Jennocent. And it's interesting because they read Erica Jane for filth. And the thing with Erica Jane, in my opinion, is I don't believe she had her hands dirty in terms of being the culprit. I think her husband, Tom Giraldi, allegedly was doing all of this unbeknownst to her, my opinion. But people are more celebrating Jen Shah than they were Erica Jane, which to me just kind of shows you the mentality of some people. But do you think that comes from Jen Shah in some people's eyes being this likable character?
I think that you've got to, if you were to compare Erica, I think Erica and Tom were so over the top about their lifestyle, and he was demeaning to the other women in scenes. So the dinner party scene where Tom Girardi is with all those other women, he was very demeaning to them. And I think that people get tired of seeing two, particularly like a white couple, who have that much power and access and kind of thumbing their noses at people. And I think that Jen, for some reason, there was a side to her. She's a minority. She's married to a Black man. I think that in 2023, people really wanted to see a story of this great family, two sons. By the way, she's two great kids. She does. She's got great kids. So I think people really connected to that story. She's got a husband, seemingly, who is a football coach, who is very supportive of her, very calm and loving and nurturing. And I think that the story packaged the way it was when we first were introduced to them, people wanted to like them and love them. And she's so funny in scenes, she is. But once you start to crack away at the exterior and peel back the layer, you realize this is somebody who does not have one authentic moment in her entire life and lies consistently and never takes responsibility in any way. And that is what's hard, is because you have to kind of understand the minutia of the telemarketing scheme to really see how awful she is. But because they don't really get into that in the show in the same way they do on Beverly Hills, people just see this very fun personality who makes scenes on that show much more enjoyable. So I don't blame the audience for that, which trickles down into Twitter, because you have to be somebody that really kind of digs deep into the lawsuit to really understand it.
Yes, and let's dig into what she was saying in court today that we got from the court reporters that put all the information out on Twitter. Jen Shah told the judge something along the lines of the medication she was taking sort of allowed her to make bad decisions. And to your point, it's like you're making excuses again. The only medication you were taking was the thirst of being on reality TV. You drank the Kool-Aid. That was what was prescribed to you.
Well, I think it even predated that. I think that you've said it before too. The quintessential housewife is somebody who thinks that they're such an interesting person. Like, why haven't cameras come to me? Like, why hasn't a network cold called me already? Because I'm the most interesting person in any room anywhere in the world. That is who she was before. This predated Housewives. I don't think she, in her life, even as a toddler, has ever taken responsibility. It is always someone else's fault. Always. And her personality, for some reason, has let her get away with it, because you even see it with Heather and Lisa and Whitney. The only person that held her accountable was Marianne Cosby. All the other women are like, but she's so fun to be around. She's literally shitting on your shoes. And you're like, but she's fun. It's like something crazy about her personality. It's like people. So listen, con artists, I just did a whole episode about Madoff. It's the same thing. Con artists, they get your trust. They're very charming people. She's a con. She's a con artist to the highest degree. And she conned a ton of people, which includes the people that watch this show.
And she also conned Mia Thornton from the Real Housewives of Potomac.
Oh, did she?
Because in terms of this support that Mia tweeted today, Kate Casey, so Mia Thornton tweeted today, praying for you, sis. And a lot of people read Mia for filth. Like, why are you praying for somebody who actually prayed Preyed.
Preyed on people.
Preyed on people, not just
The
people,
elderly.
Kate, the elderly.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that? And Mia clapped back and said, I'm spiritual. I love you, Mia, but you're a lot of things. Okay. And I love you. You know I love you, but come on, Mia. And Mia said, well, look, you need to always pray for people, which yes, we should, and I agree with that. But it's also like, why are you tweeting that knowing that at the end of the day, this woman has pled guilty to committing these crimes? And what you're saying is so true, Kate, in terms of she just doesn't seem remorseful. So a lot of people are surprised that the judge only gave her 6.5 years.
I'm really shocked. I thought she deserved far more. I'm really
How
shocked.
many years did you think she deserved?
Well, I think the maximum would have been 14. I actually thought she would maybe get 13. And here's why. I've covered so many white collar crime cases. Before I was a podcast host, I did crisis media litigation for global law firms. I represented white collar attorneys. So I have been in this space for a long time, pitching reporters, getting reporters, white collar crime attorneys to talk about implications of different lawsuits, et cetera. I am very surprised because the fact that she's a public person would have made this the perfect opportunity to deter other potential crimes from other people. And I think that this opportunity was missed. She was so disrespectful, in my opinion, in that courtroom, like thumbing her nose, like selling merchandise, not taking it seriously. Also saying, well, you know, my elders, like I have so much respect for my elders, while also conning the elderly. This is not someone that's taking this seriously. I think they should have made an example out of her and given her more time.
Do you think she'll serve all 6.5 years, or do you think?
No, I think it's like, you know, usually around 80%, people usually, if she's behaves herself in prison, you know, she doesn't really cause a lot of issues, but I wouldn't be surprised if she gets, released a little bit early. I'm not going to say 3 years. I would say maybe like 6 years, 5.5 years.
If she gets released in 5.5 years, do you think the reason why she says she's still a cast member on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is because she will get invited back to be on the show? Or do you think Bravo will nix all communication and professionalism with her?
No, why would they? I mean, Teresa came back to the show. I mean, I think for them, they're just looking at like what's interesting storytelling. Do I want to watch that? No, but that's my choice as a viewer. I guess it really depends on how interested people are still in that story. Do I think that she has the same sort of staying power that Teresa Giudice did? No, because I think people were so not so much enamored by Teresa, but with the whole family story, and they saw these young kids. And I think that Jen, to her credit, maybe she kept her son's lives much more private than the Giudices did. So I think that the audience was much more sentimental about what happens to the Giudice children. So it's a little bit different that way. I don't know. I mean, quite honestly, do you think Real Housewives is going to be around in 5.5 years? I kind of don't. So I mean, that's kind of like moot point. Like is she going to leave and be like, I'm back? And it's like, they closed shop on that show a couple of years ago. Like the new show's called like Breaking Bananas, and it's on Hulu, and like Bravo doesn't even exist. Who knows what's going to happen? And like,
well, girl,
networks, like what's going to happen? I don't know.
This is no shade. I don't think the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City will be around in 5 years.
Oh, sure. No. No, I don't think it's going to be around in a year and a half. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, listen, I always have thought, I've said it before, I think that they need to make it more about what actually goes on in Salt Lake City. And I think what's fascinating right now are the influencers that are the stay-at-home moms and these giveaways that are very suspect, and there are people that were friends and they're not friends, and they're all in the same community. There's so many layers that I find are so interesting and so specific to that part of the country. I think it can exist if they start to focus on that, because right now I don't see a real connection between many of those cast members. And I feel like Ben and Ronnie from Watch What Crappens say they feel like they're community theater actors.
Yes, that's why I stopped watching this season of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I stopped watching. I did not do a review on my podcast. I missed an episode, I think episode 3 or 4, and I was like, I had no desire to go back and watch it. And then I said, you know what, fuck this shit, and I just stopped watching it.
Yeah,
it holds my attention.
It was like haphazardly put together, and then Ben was like, I think that maybe they filmed with Jenny, and then that whole thing happened, and they were like, oh shit. And then they threw a couple people in and then tried to put the episodes together, and they're like, just send them to San Diego on a trip, trying to make something work, and then like end of the season, goodbye. I think they're trying to do too much in the run-up to her sentencing, that it just felt like very disjointed. But on a fundamental level, I just don't think any of them have long-standing relationships. Their lives don't overlap. None of them are very forthright about their lives. When you compare it to Miami, where they are all living out loud and living on camera and showing all aspects of your life. What do I really know about Lisa Barlow? I know that she's married to her husband, who seems like the patron saint of Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm.
Her sons seem to be enamored by being television stars, and maybe not so interested in school anymore because of it. That's actually all that I really know. I don't know much about her siblings, what her life was like when she was growing up, what it's been like to build her businesses. Is it hard now having friendships now that, you've been on the show? Do people now feel uncomfortable being around you because they don't know how private their lives can be? Like, all these little nuances are completely missing in this show, that it doesn't give me reason to keep coming back for more. And then Whitney, it feels dark that she has this experience that she's trying to kind of unravel from her childhood, but hasn't had the space to really figure it all out yet. And I'm like, maybe we need to revisit this publicly in a couple years when she's had time to think about it.
Yes.
And to participate in it right now feels like, it makes me feel like she's going to regret it, that she is living that. I don't know. It's weird. I want them to be more vulnerable, but then I feel like Whitney's vulnerability right now, I'm like, I don't think this is for the show right now.
Yeah, and I also think, listen, there is something going on with the franchise to where these women are trying to make a moment instead of living in the moment. And it's the reason why it's hard for me to connect to Salt Lake City. It's hard for me to enjoy Potomac Housewives this season. This probably is the worst season of Potomac Housewives since season 1, because these women are doing things to make great television instead of understanding you were cast because you were great. So be great in the scene. And that goes.
Can I ask you something?
Absolutely.
Because this always I struggle with this with you. You keep calling Giselle Kobe. I'm like, what is he talking about? I don't understand that, because I feel like I know nothing about her either.
I am so happy you asked the question. And to my listeners and to our viewers, that's why me and Kate are great, because we actually disagree on stuff. So that's a very good question. And I do get asked that a lot. And you are about to get my exclusive answer.
Okay, good.
The reason why I called Giselle Kobe Bryant, and the reason why out of 145 housewives, she made it on my top 10 of the greatest housewives of all time, is because Giselle Bryant did a phenomenal job her earlier seasons of always knowing how to. It's the reason why we say force multiplier that I learned from Ebony K. Williams. It's the person within an organization,
right,
who knows how to seize the moment, who knows how to move the pieces around. It's the person where the producers are the coach, right?
Right.
They map out the game plan, and then you have the sort of like the star player execute it. So when it came to Giselle, her earlier seasons, Giselle was so magnificent at moving the pieces around to get the story out of people, to extract the story out of Ashley, out of Candace, out of out of these people to where these women would just sit there and nothing would be happening because they weren't vulnerable in scenes. And Giselle was great in her earlier seasons to where she pulled the vulnerability out of people like Karen. She pulled the shadiness out of the stories, similar to Candace and Ashley having their issues. I think season 5, where Candace threw the butter knife. It's because Giselle said, oh, what's happening? I'm confused. No, Ashley, don't leave. You need to address this because those women need somebody to organize the conversation. And to me, that was a great attribute that I enjoyed from Potomac because, and this is no disrespect to the cast because I love all of them, but for the longest time, none of them wanted to step up and just give everything to the show. They kind of had to be told to do it. Mm-hmm. And Giselle was sort of like the producer amongst the cast where she got it out of them. It's similar to how Nene Leakes was in her seasons on Atlanta, to where she brought the best out of Sheree, the best out of Kim Zolciak, the best out of Kenya, the best out of these conversations. And then towards the end of Atlanta Housewives, you know, Nene was on for so long that I think she was just going through a lot in terms of dealing with the fame of the show, dealing with her position on the show. And what Giselle is doing now that breaking news, I said this to Giselle in person. Me and Giselle were guests at Portia's wedding, and we had a good time. And Kate, I'm honest with my friends. I said to Giselle to her face, I got a bone to pick with you. And she was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I said, hey, I watched the Miami episode of Potomac. That was not a good look for you.
Yeah.
And she said, why? And I said, we look for you to always rally the women. And we look for you to always be the one to, yes, extract the story, but also making sure that the ladies are being held accountable and being real. And the fact that this woman, Mia, threw a drink in Wendy's face, and you sat there and you laughed and you did nothing. When you are the star of the show, and when I say she's the star of the show, it doesn't mean the other women aren't stars. Let's be clear. But to me, Giselle Bryan is the face of the show. I did an interview with Candace, and she said Bravo is promoting Karen and Giselle to be the face. I think the difference between Karen and Giselle is Giselle doesn't mind getting in the doo-doo. Mm-hmm. And Karen is a reactor. You have to push Karen to get great moments where Giselle's just going to give to you anyway. And I say, when you have that responsibility, it's the same thing I said to Nene. It's the same thing I said to other reality stars I work with. It is your job to be the person that loses the alliance and says right is right and wrong is wrong. Yeah. And what Mia did was wrong. And she said to me to my face, okay, you're right. I see your point. And I said to her, I have to talk about this on my podcast and tell the audience how I feel. So I just want to prepare you. And she was fine with it. So that's why I call her Giselle Kobe Bryant. But my issue when it comes to Housewives, and I would love to get your opinion. They're so afraid of losing their jobs.
Yeah, that's true.
That they are no longer becoming likable or enjoyable. Yeah. And that brings me to Lisa Rinna getting fired, allegedly.
Wait, before we go there, I just want to say one thing about Giselle. What Giselle does, Nene Leakes was so incredibly open about her life. Yes. Willing to talk to you about the things that she was battling, whether it was parenting, her marriage, her friendships, her relationships with her relatives. And I think that Giselle's error is that she never does that. I think if she does
it sometimes.
If she had a moment where, like, even the scenes with her kids, I'm saying as like another mother, she has 3 gorgeous girls, and the moments are always kind of funny, which is good to see. But I also never hear her say things like, you know, two of them are going off to college now, and I'm really having a hard time imagining my life with just one kid at home? Or did I have them in the right school? Or I'm worried about one that maybe she's not going to, you know, go to the right school, or their friendships. There's nothing about motherhood that she ever kind of gets into. That's just one facet of her life. Like, I feel like I need more, and she never goes there. And I feel like if I were in the crew, that's a conversation I would have to her and say, if you just cracked yourself open more, this show would be so much more interesting. But because you never allow anybody to see anything personal, you come off as conniving and manipulative. And that's the last thing that I would think you would want to think people think have people think of you. You know, like you got to crack yourself open. And I do think you're right that they think so much about, I don't want to be fired, because I feel like they get so stuck in the rhythm of like social media that you have to have the moment. You have to have the big you know, clip moments, which can perpetuate the memes. And in that, when you look back at the broad scope of Real Housewives, the ones that really connect with you the most have been the ones that have worn their hearts on the sleeve, cracked themselves open, bled for the cameras, because that's who we connect with. That's meaningful storytelling right there.
I could not agree with you more. And you took the words out of my mouth, because I was just about to say to you, as you were talking about NeNe's vulnerable moments juxtaposed against Gizelle's lack of emotion, I'm going to say this to you. The beauty of NeNe Leakes was two things. Number one, she's a star. So like, she's a star. Number two, NeNe trusted the advice and the direction of the producers. And yes, since I was a producer, 99% of the time was me. When you see season 3, where NeNe sat in the dining room table and she had a conversation with her older son, Bryson, about the direction his life was going into. And he made a comment saying, you're too hard on me. And she said, I paid the bills and I'm hard on you, and all this other stuff. It's because I, as a producer, because I'm not going to put all the blame on just the housewives, I have to also hold the producers accountable on these shows. Stop. Ooh, I'm about to say it, Kate.
Say it, because it's the truth.
These producers, stop applying to be a producer on these reality shows so you could be friends with these women, so that you could have drinks after work with these women, so you could brag to your friends during the holiday Christmas party. Oh my gosh, this is Kenya calling me. I gotta stop it. Stop trying to be friends with them because you want them to give you a happy birthday shout out on fucking Instagram.
Yeah.
The problem.
You need to have a producer that goes, there are people watching the show and they think your life is perfect, and it's not.
And Gizelle doesn't have that.
And you need to tell people like what it's like to be a single mother, to have an ex-husband who is a international figure who you have to co-parent with. Your kids are like, she's got to crack herself open. Yeah.
Oh, she does.
And I do like that about Candace, because especially more that she's talking more about her infertility stuff. That's what people want. They want to connect with you. They want to know how I don't want to see somebody who walks into a room with a cape on and has like a hair and makeup team and a Range Rover outside. It's not interesting to me. What's interesting is like who you are in your life experiences.
1000%. And that's what Gizelle needs. And listen, I don't know if the producers are or not talking to her. So I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I will say this. I told some of the producers, this is around season 2 or 3, and this is some tea for you, Kate. I saw Gizelle on The Breakfast Club. And I love Gizelle since the day Potomac premiered, because I was like, you have this beautiful woman who's funny and she's self-deprecating and she's a leader. And I thought like, wow, That's wow, that's rare to find in a housewife. And then she did an interview in the Breakfast Club, and I felt that she was too snarky, and that I felt there was an ego there. I remember texting the producers, and I said, hey, y'all should watch out for this. She is the face of the show. And when you are the face of the show, you need to always make sure your stars are likable. And I said, I think you guys should, work on this. They said to me, and I quote,
What?
that's just who she is. It's fine.
What?
And I said to myself, you're
That's
talking
like
to somebody who worked with Nene Leakes, Teresa Giudice, Kenya Moore. I worked with some of the greatest housewives of all time. I had to have moments with Nene and say, no, you need to talk about this. And me and Nene was truly like Beyonce, Matthew Knowles in terms of that. Kenya Moore is another example. When Kenya Moore pulled Kim Field's chair in Jamaica, season 7, I spoke to Kenya afterwards and I said, that was bad. And you're going to get red on Twitter for this. I said, you pulling Kim Field's chair is really bad, and you should not have done that. I don't think it's funny. It's not a good moment. And it's really bad. And Kenya looked at me, and this is why Kenya and I get along, because Kenya is the only housewife who never yelled at me, because she always respected my opinion. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, you're so right. I regret it already. And that's why she publicly has said her biggest regret is pulling Kim Field's chair, because you need a producer to tell you that. And the reason why Potomac isn't working for me this season is because what you said, Kate, I don't feel like we're getting any true depth, personal story from the cast. And I sometimes wonder if it's the cast or is it just production not demanding that from them.
I also feel like I would absolutely not be the right person to review it, but I feel like and from conversations that I've had with friends, particularly with Taria Faison, I want to put her name out there for everyone to follow, and Dr. Raquel Gates. There's obviously lots of colorism issues that I think would be so interesting to unravel and to talk about, and it would be the perfect show for it. It really would be the perfect show for it. And I wish that they would discuss it. And I'm hopeful that maybe someone's listening and they think about that, because I think for someone who isn't Black like myself, I think that's enormously helpful to understand the broad context of their relationships. And also, there's also the element too, isn't there, like the sororities, like there's like different nuances to their relationships.
Yeah.
Like that I think are
Jack
so
and Jill, they're AKAs. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's for me as a viewer, and maybe I'm different than most people, like that stuff is so interesting to me. All those little different nuances to understand their different relationships and how their complicated lives kind of intertwine.
Yes. And that's why, look, breaking news, that's why everybody, and I'm talking to the housewives, you all need to spend a weekend watching this current season of the Real Housewives of Miami.
Agreed. Because
it is the best housewives out right now. New Jersey is coming out in a few weeks. And I will say this, the last season of New Jersey was fantastic. It was delicious. It was so good. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jersey brings, because Jersey finally has gotten it right. After so many mishaps with casting and these weird casting decisions, New Jersey is having some of its greatest seasons ever. But going back to the Real Housewives of Miami, when you saw Lisa dealing with Lenny, cheating on her, allegedly, and being on this girls trip, and how the girls rallied around her.
Because but that's women. I feel like these shows have concentrated on these these insignificant fights and the way that they've ripped apart each other about the most insane surface level stuff. To me, that was like, thank you. And thank you, purveyors of pop, for illuminating who women really are in a crisis. That is what makes us different, is that in a crisis, we come together and our power is so strong. And I was so happy that they showed that. And despite any different small disagreements in that moment, they were like, hell to the no. Fuck Lenny, what's his face? Hochstein. This asshole's going down. It was an amazing, great moment.
It was fantastic. And also, they also gave you comedy. Like, well, girl, you had these parties. Like, it was, you were still able to laugh at it. And listen, say what you want about Larsa Pippen.
She's great in this.
She was, first of all, she's the force multiplier this season. I still think Alexia is the face of the show, but Larsa is having a great season. Not only is she being messy, but you could tell that she really wants to help out Lisa, because Larsa looks at herself as, I'm a woman who dealt with some things in my marriage, got a divorce, and I got it right. I did it the right way. And the fact that it's these small nuances that I'm sure you caught on, where she tells Lisa, hey, just call me later. Call me so you and I can talk.
Because I'm going to tell you what you really need to hear.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do this publicly, also to protect you so that no one knows your game plan. Because let me tell you, I know how to play with the big ballers. This fucker is going to go down and you're going to get every single cent that you deserve, because you have not been in a marriage where you were an equal partner, and the game is different now. And I'm going to support you. That, to me, that's women to a T.
It's the reason why we were invested in the franchise to begin with. And I feel like what has happened now, I got to be honest.
That was such a great moment, by the way. Yeah.
It was.
Call me later.
Girl, call me later. We'll talk at the hotel.
By the way, that's stuff you say to me. You're like, call me later.
Oh, I say, because we're real friends.
Yeah. Call me later.
Some things aren't for mass consumption. Like, no, girl, I'll talk to you because we're friends. And what's happening with the Real Housewives to me is, not only are some of these women afraid of losing their job, because 90% of these women depend on that check, because they're not making any money outside of the check. It is a cute check. But it also forces them to where they're now just being a shade assassin. It's sort of like, who can be the shadiest?
That's a great way to put it. I like that you said that. That's true. Shade assassin. Yeah.
Real Housewives now is, who is the shadiest of them all?
Yeah. How can I humiliate you? How can I demean you? How can I destroy you in your life and make you feel insignificant in this world? How can I make you feel humiliated, have your husband and your children be humiliated by you? And that, to me, is so disappointing, where that's why I love those Miami scenes. It's like, no, that's really who women are.
It's funny. They still have these shady moments, but it's not.
Who's in production making these decisions? I can't believe it's women going, this is so fun. Let's make up a scene where they can humiliate one another.
Because gone are the days where reality producers are invested in the show and not invested in the paycheck they get every Friday. A lot of reality producers are in it for the wrong reasons. And when you have someone like myself, and Purveyors of Pop is a great company that produces The Real Housewives of Miami. They also do Married to Medicine, which is another show is fantastic. Is because, and they also worked on Atlanta Housewives with, I was working with them in the earlier days of Atlanta. And they know how to produce, because they know that it's this showrunner named Darren Ward. Darren Ward is a showrunner for Miami Housewives.
Was he in New York before?
He was in New York before. Yeah. And he also, another one, girl, he also revitalized Dallas Housewives and did season 2.
Oh, okay.
And season 2 of Dallas was fantastic, because season 1 was a hot mess. We were, listen, those are my peers in the sense of, we were all trained to do reality the right way. And that's why I'm hard on my team, in the sense of, we gotta follow the story. It's not a shade contest. It's not a contest of how you can eviscerate this woman. Can you be funny and shady? Absolutely.
Well, I think that Matt and Nate, Purveyors and Pop, really really deeply care about their talent. I think you do too. I think that's what I'm hearing you say, and what I'm feeling is that it takes somebody who really deeply cares about the talent.
Yes.
They want the best for them.
They do. And I feel like that's the reason why Lisa Rinna got fired, allegedly. She said it was a mutual decision. I don't think that's true. My opinion. I used to love Lisa Rinna. And I loved her because, hear me out, Kate. She had the Giselle Bryant persona, in the sense of she knew how to like move the pieces, and
she brought things out of people.
Yeah,
on camera.
brought things out of people, but was still funny, you know, still likable, messy, but we all were like, okay, Lisa. And then something happened the past 2 seasons. She got an ego. She called
herself the LeBron James.
And I was like, girl, you're not even the Rick James. Like
what? Can you put that on your tombstone? Yes. That's the funniest thing you've ever said. You're not even Rick James.
You're not even Rick James, Lisa Rinna, let alone LeBron James. You're not even, girl, you know, girl, like, bye, right? I'm gonna say this too. People like Michael Rappaport blew her head up. There were certain people, you know, it was like, Michael, sit this one out. Like, she's fine. She became so desperate that it's like she would have done anything to get a moment. And that's when people started to turn on her. And as somebody who enjoyed her, I and you both said, if you're going to have that level of messy, why are we really seeing how you're dealing with the passing of your mom?
Right.
Why are we seeing conversations with you and your daughters about what's going on with the state of modeling? Can we fucking see a scene where you and Harry are not talking about the spaghetti sauce or Garcelle, where you're talking about like, wow, we have this marriage in Hollywood that has stood the test of time. And guess what? Can you believe your ex, Nicolette Sheridan, is saying these things about us? Like, that's the inside world of Hollywood. They were like, talk about Nicolette Sheridan. Talk about some of these old stories of what it was like when you guys first met. We know nothing about your marriage to Harry Hamlin.
Or have a conversation when you're fighting with Sutton, you spill it out and you say, you moved here, you married someone in financial service, now you're divorced. You don't belong here. This is a city that's based on the entertainment industry, that of which I've worked for 40 years. You will never make it here. You can try as much as you want with all the money that you have, but you'll never be here. Because I think that's what she really thinks. And I think that's what people in LA think. I think that's how the industry works. In no way would someone working in that industry for 40 years be just like, okay, you can come in on your private jet with your hedge fund money. You can't make it here. It'd be the same in New York. If an actress moves to Wall Street, she just doesn't show up at a dinner party with a bunch of hedge fund people and their spouses. They'd be like, who do you think you are? You're an actress. Those are the nuances they should have focused on. That's what makes Beverly Hills. It's a whole tier system. And you could have a big movie come out, but if you have like a sleeper or like a show that doesn't work out in the ratings, you're back down on the bottom. All those little nuances, I need to know more. Crystal, talk to me what it's like to be married to the director. When you go to places, do people ignore you because you don't actually direct the movies? Like, that's what I'm signing up for. I want to know about that. Does Kyle ever struggle with, yeah, I mean, I've had success, but I still can't get the respect of someone like a Julia Roberts because I was never in a big movie. They just look at me as a TV star. If you don't do that stuff, it's the same as Real Housewives of, I don't know, Wyoming, West Virginia. How's that any different? Like, what?
Yes. And that's the thing. I really wish, and listen, I don't know whether or not this happened. And similar to Potomac, I don't know what the production is telling these ladies. I would hope that they're saying, you guys are all unlikable, and this is what we need to do to fix this show. I had this conversation with my Huntsville cast, Love and Marriage Huntsville. I flew down to Huntsville, Kate Casey, a few weeks ago and had a very important meeting with my cast because I wasn't satisfied with some things that I was seeing in the sense of like,
are they scared of you?
Yeah, because I was like, I have to really have a come to Jesus with these people because I care. I wonder if people said that to Lisa Rinna. When you look at Lisa Rinna, she did the most. And what I think is interesting is this. Lisa Rinna getting fired, allegedly, is a wake-up call to the housewives. And I'm going to say to you why. In my opinion, I feel like casting decisions are being made based on the response of Twitter. When you look at someone like Dorinda, our friend Tamra, where people were like, get her off the show. They suck. They're doing too much. I had a conversation with Tamra Judge, who I love, on my podcast. And I said to her, people said that your last season, you were just doing the most. And she said, I really felt like I was being myself. And I was like, I felt like you were being yourself, but exaggerated. And she said, okay, I see that. What's happening now is these housewives needs to know, if they don't follow your advice, Kate, of being vulnerable, getting us a balanced story, Candace Dillard-Bassett is having her greatest season of all time because what the other ladies are doing to her is making people feel sorry for Candace, and that's why she's winning this season. And Lisa Rinna losing her job while Dorit allegedly is keeping hers, or Crystal. If Crystal is still on the show and Lisa Rinna is gone, Houston or Beverly Hills, we have a problem.
Yeah, but okay, but I would like to add two things to that. First of all, I've said it before, housewives are like Menudo. You're interchangeable. No one is going to last forever. Even Saturday Night Live recruits different cast members. Kristen Wiig left, the show continued, you know? And if you start to believe that the show will end if you leave, you're out of your mind.
Say that one more time, Kate Casey, for the people in the back, because I have said it, but I want you to say it. Say that one more time. And to my social media people, please clip this and tag the reality star who you think need to hear this. Go, Kate.
You are not the be-all, end-all of the show. You're interchangeable. You're part of an ensemble. And at some point, you will be switched out. And you should enjoy the time that you're a cast member and use it for whatever life experience you need or career experience, but you will be replaced at some point. It's no different than anybody that has any job anywhere in the world. No one stays in a job for the rest of their life. You're interchangeable. And honestly, it wouldn't be good for you to stay in a show. Your life changes, and it doesn't represent, this period of your time doesn't represent who you are for the rest of your life. Everybody should be evolving. And if you want to stay in that one place as a cast member of an ensemble show, I think you're limiting yourself. But somehow I think that they feel like living within that show is everything they've ever needed in the world. It's like their oxygen. And it just, I feel badly for the people that are in their lives because they suffer because of it. They like, fame compromises them. The opportunity compromises who they were when they're never the person they were when they started the show. And I think it's often because they stay too long. Like you got to know, even the best professional sports athletes know when to walk away. You got to know when to walk away. And sure, you're not going to be like the star of BravoCon anymore, but like, do you want to be that for the rest of your life? Right? So that always kills
so right.
me. And then what was the other part we were talking? Oh, the other part is this. I think it would seem to me, and this is based on nothing that I know personally. I don't have any inside scoop. I'm just somebody who has had a long professional life and looks at this from the sidelines. But I think Lisa Rinna did a disservice to herself by saying disparaging things about the production team, by talking about storylines before they came out, getting herself way too involved with people that are clearly trying to sabotage storylines in the show. And if you work in production or the network, I would think you'd be like, I got to get rid of this person. It makes their jobs all the more hard. And it really doesn't, it's not satisfying for the audience in the end. It became too dirty. And I think that it's a cautionary tale for everyone else who's involved in these shows. Like, I think in the best of worlds, you go, you film for a couple months, and then you go back to your real life. But unfortunately, that just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, because this is what's happening with these women. A lot of these women never had a real job.
For sure. Right.
And they don't know the politics of having a real job. It's like someone working for me, but go on Twitter to talk shit about me.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you would never do that.
You just wouldn't do that. And it goes to show you that this is one thing I know. That world of Housewives is a bubble. It truly is a bubble. And there's women, let's call it out, of Vicky Govison, who truly does not know how to move on without that show. Just can't even think about life after ... There's women to where they feel like, because arguably it's the biggest show in the world that gives you immediate fame, immediate financial security for the least amount of work. Right? When you take that away from these women, they feel less than. Because I'm going to give you an industry tip. When you are a housewife who loses their job, it is very hard for a network to pick you up.
Yeah.
It's because you are forever staying as a housewife. And a lot of these networks don't want a housewife on their platform because it's one of two things. And I know this from experience. Number one, they feel like we have our own brand and you don't fit into it, and it dilutes the brand. It confuses people. And number two, they don't want to deal with the expectation because you make a lot of money and you have a lot of access. So when you go on these other networks, you're like, you're only offering me this?
Right.
That's what do you mean we shoot for? What's happening?
And I don't have a hair and makeup team.
They lose a sense of reality because they feel like their housewife experience is the standard across all networks. And I can tell you it's not. And that's the other reason why it's hard for them to find a job in terms of being a TV personality. And that's the reason why they literally will do whatever it takes. And that's why when you look at Lisa Rinna and you look at Potomac and you look at some of these other shows that are suffering from this, it's now to the point, Kate, where I know for a fact that before a season starts on some of these shows, some of these women have a meeting and they conspire what the storyline is going to be. Because
let's just deep dive that for just a second. Because I think people who are listening just pulled their cars over. I think that they just told their kids, get the fuck out of the room. They lock the door. They're grabbing a cocktail. This is the shit people really want to know. This is really right now what people really want to know. The season has yet to begin. Filming's going to begin. They know who's on the show. There are people that meet together. What does that look like?
So, not all housewives do this. Not all reality stars do this, but this is what some of them do. You get a schedule. Well, first of all, you get your pickup letter. Hi, we would like to invite you back for another season. Yay. when that happens, the next step is these women text. All these women are in a group chat. Every show.
What? Just one thing. When they get that letter, what's the percentage? This is the shit that I care about.
Go ahead, talk.
What's the percentage that go, oh my God, we're in the clear? Like they're screaming at their husband. We're going to be able, we can float this month or, the next year because I got my letter. We're going to be okay.
100%.
How many of these women text their friends and say, thank God this like Instagram train is not ending. Like we're still in the clear.
100% of them.
How many of these women are texting other castmates and they go, oh my God, we can still be, I don't know if they're going to say this, or if they're thinking to themselves, I guess I still have to be friends with that person because we're still on the show together.
Not that. This is what they do. They all text each other and say, did you get yours? I got mine.
Got it. Okay.
And that way they find out who is coming back and who isn't. But
then they're doing side texts and they're like, oh man, yes, so-and-so didn't get it.
There's a group chat because think about it. If me, let's say it's me, you, Danny Pellegrino, and the guys from Watch What Crappens on a group chat.
Okay, perfect.
Which, by the way, there needs to be one.
Okay. I know there should be. Amazing. Yeah.
Let's say the 5 of us was on a group chat. And let's say that there was this podcast, a podcast con for people like us who review reality shows, right?
Okay.
And they're inviting the best of the best, right?
Right.
It's a big deal because it's seen in 190 countries like Netflix. It's a huge deal to be a part of this, right? Let's say, Kate, you're like, hey guys, I got an invite to attend and they're gonna pay me whatever. If one of us did not get invited, we're embarrassed and we're not gonna respond. So that's why they don't ask in the group chat, because God forbid that one person did not get their pickup letter. And now this is what they do. They're calling their manager, their agent, and their attorney saying, so-and-so got a pickup letter, I didn't. What the fuck is going on?
Okay. So, this is what I want to know. Yeah.
But if you're friends with one of the cast members, you say, hey girl, did you get a pickup letter? I did. Okay, we're in the clear. Okay. So who's gonna text this person? Because you know she don't like me. Okay, I'm going to have so-and-so text her and then text me to see if she got her pickup letter. Because they all conspire with who is coming back to the show. So that happens.
Okay.
Then this is what happens next. There's an unofficial celebratory dinner.
Oh, okay. This is what people want to know. Okay.
Of getting your pickup letter, right?
No cameras.
No cameras.
Nothing. This is just like in our normal lives. We're going to go out.
Once you find out who got their pickup letter and you're on cordial ground with these women, you then say, we all should just meet up, have lunch or dinner, and let's talk about the upcoming season because they're excited, right? To be asked back. And then in that lunch or dinner off camera, they talk about the expectations of the season. And they talk about what happened off camera, who's getting exposed, who's going to be the villain, what storylines they want to talk about, what each other has.
So will they go, okay, this is what I plan for my storyline. This is what I plan for mine.
Yes.
Now, is this something that they've come up with on their own? Or is this the help with their agent, their manager, the person that does their hair, their assistant?
All of the above.
Who in your experience, by the way, please forgive me, audience, if I'm so annoying, but I firmly believe this is the shit you want to know too. Who in your experience is the most detrimental person to a housewife's ego? Is it the agent, the lawyer, the manager, the person that does their hair, their assistant, their spouse, their kids, or their friends that are not on the Real Housewives?
It's one or two people. It's either their manager or their publicist.
Okay.
When this is the funny part. When a reality star becomes a breakout star, there is this small circle of publicists and managers who only work with reality stars. They reach out and they say, we want to represent you. Half the time they do it for free. They don't get paid because that's how badly they want to be in your life.
Well, wouldn't you say that's a red flag? No one should ever work for free.
Again, some of these women never had a job, so they don't get it. So then that's what happens.
Okay.
The manager or publicist will then say, okay, so I got this big endorsement deal, or I can work on getting this. But I want you to be more likable, right? So mind you, the reason why this person is the breakout star is because, some of them may be controversial, a little shady. They're not the sweetest people in the world, right? So then they get told by this publicist or manager to dilute their personality that made them a star. So then
it's telling them to dilute it, or in some cases, amplify it.
Always dilute.
Interesting.
Never to amplify. Ever.
Okay.
Ever. And then the reality stars tell the producers, oh yeah, I'm not going to talk about that.
This makes sense. That's tracks.
I'm not going to talk about that. No, my publicist, no, my manager. I had a situation to where someone had the audacity to say to me, can me, you, and my manager hop on a conference call? I said, girl.
What?
On no day am I interfacing with your manager.
Wow.
Did your manager get you cast on the show? No. And that's why 9 times out of 10, they get fired.
I had one housewife from a show on the East Coast who had a quote unquote manager who I met and was a con artist that charmed the shit out of me. And I don't get charmed by people, not the shit out of me, but he was charming. Set up an interview, did the interview. And then he told me I represent this other housewife, same franchise. Then I got a call from the network and they were like, wait, you have to go through us to set up the interview. I said, well, what do you mean? He told me that he's the manager and the publicist. And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. That guy, to your point, he completely lied about representing one of the housewives.
Yes.
I was like on the phone with the network, with the Bravo person. I was like, wait, what do you, and she was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what are you talking about? I have to know when we hang up. I'll have to know.
Exactly.
Wow.
No, we'll be like Lars and Lisa. We'll talk about this.
Yeah. It's like, I always wonder what happened to that guy. I was like, what a piece of shit.
So that's what happens. That's what happens.
Frustrating.
And that's why when you think about Lisa Rinna, look, I will say this. I feel sorry for Lisa Rinna because of this. She lost her mom. And if you ever lost a parent, it's the most devastating thing in the world.
Can't imagine.
She lost her mom and she also lost her job.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I think we all need to be a little, I'm laughing because I know people like Carlos, fuck you. But I would like to say, let's be a little kinder to Lisa Rinna because she has suffered 2 big losses in her life within the span of a year. And I'm more concerned about how she's doing, just to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think she'll be fine, though. I think that she's an enormously clever person, entertaining. And I don't actually think the show represented her anymore. I think she's going to be a much better version of herself and happier by doing something different that's not Housewives. I think she's going to be great, actually.
Oh, really? So what is next for Lisa Rinna?
I think she should do way more like with QVC. I mean, I really, there's a tremendous amount of money in that industry. And she does make good lipsticks, I got to say. I have to say, I really enjoy her lipsticks. So I don't, she has these 2 successful daughters. They should build a company together. And by the way, that's the show that you sell. That's the show you sell.
I was going to say, that's actually what she should be doing. We know that Lisa Rinna enjoys being famous. I want to know this, though, from you, Kate. Do you think her getting booed at BravoCon had anything to do with some of the decisions that was made in allegedly firing her?
I think that's always definitely a part of it. I think that they're probably paying attention to all that stuff. But I think it's just like any business where you're like, does this employee like cooperate? I mean, are they enjoyable to work with? Did they make, it's, you know, it's like if you work at a tech company and you've got an executive and all the other employees underneath them are like, hey, listen, I got to tell you, I like you and I like this company, but I hate working for that person. Like, this is a nightmare. If you have enough people that are complaining off the show, on the show, executives, and they're like, this is such a wild card. At some point you go, I don't know if it's worth it for us to keep this person working here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I do really think that Miami has kind of reinvigorated Housewives in a good way, where
Yes.
I got really bored by it for a very long time.
Same.
And Miami has kind of made me feel like, okay, there is still great storytelling available still or out there. It's just, I think you have to have the right team to do it, and you have to have the right talent.
I could not agree more. And that's why Housewives, the only exception would be Jersey. Housewives, please watch The Real Housewives of Miami. That's the thing y'all should be studying and talking about in your group dinners off camera, instead of conspiring to say, this is the storyline we're going to focus on this season. We want more real stuff. And when I look at Potomac as an example, the focus on Chris Bassett being this flirty husband is so dumb that I would have nixed this shit in the bud after the second week of filming. And I would have told those women, Mia is telling you guys that there's something interesting about her, Jacqueline, and her husband, and this whole like throuple. Why don't you guys focus on that? Like, let's dig deep in terms of like, what is that about? But also to your point too, Kate, I want each reality star to say to themselves, what am I going through that is so emotional that I want to share it in hopes that people can people can understand who I am and relate to it. Focus on that.
What is the one, maybe we could close out with this, and I'm trying to run your show and I'm not trying to, but
no, go ahead.
Who's the one, like, what's the one storyline that's untapped right now? It's just pregnant in your mind right now. Like, I wish that they would dig into deeper with that story.
I wish, this is Carlos King's #1 request from the Housewives women and the franchise. I would love to understand the story of what it's like for a woman to spend her entire marriage being a housewife and working on making sure this home was happy. And then within a matter of months, your entire world has changed and you're now famous and you're now unable to do the things that you were used to, and how that is impacting your marriage and breaking the fourth wall in the sense of the husband saying, I got to be honest with you. We had a deal when we got married that I would do this, you would do that. And now you kind of reneged on the deal and it's affecting our lives. Not saying it has to end a divorce, but how do we allow this juggernaut of a show to fit into our lives? I want to see that, because the reason why the divorce percentage is so high, that's the reason. But no one's talking about it. I was disappointed that we never really saw Ramona and Mario have a conversation about the destruction of the marriage. The only time you saw it, Kate, was Nene and Greg talking about it a little bit in terms of how her star was risen and he no longer felt supported. But we at that time, and this was season 3. So that's like 12 years ago. And there was no breaking the fourth wall. I feel like what's happening with Lisa and Lenny on Miami Housewives, I'm so curious what happened there. Like, was he, listen, in my opinion, I don't think it had anything to do with the show. I think he was allegedly cheating on her before the cameras came back into their lives. I think, in my opinion, he said, good, you're now distracted and I could be a better cheater. Allegedly.
One layer of their marriage that I hope that she peels back is how the infertility issue affected their marriage. Because if you think of broad scopes of the things that affect marriages and what storylines have not kind of been covered by Real Housewives, that's something that I think they've never really covered, is how infertility can affect a couple.
Yes.
You know, when one person has, you know, tried harder to build the family, or someone resents, because it seems like there's a little bit of that with Lenny. I've seen in the past where he was almost resentful. Like, what do you mean you can't have a baby? I'm like, how that must affect your sense of self when your husband's making you feel less than because you can't get pregnant right away. That is a story that I feel like they haven't really tapped into in Real Housewives that I'd really like to see more of.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So this is a call to action. You know, listen, Lisa Rinna.
Oh wait, one last thing. Julia,
Yes.
the Julia story about her daughters leaving is the most relatable story that I've ever seen on Housewives. And my oldest is 13. I mean, I'm far away from that, but that tugs at my heart more than any other thing. And I completely,
I don't have kids, and I was so invested in, like, wow, like, let's talk about this. Like, and then to see Martina, like, what are you doing? Like, you have me, and she's like.
But then also Martina is from a communist country who came to the United States and was pushed to just become like, to compartmentalize things and work, and you can't sit and cry about something, like, you got to be tough. So they have like completely different mindsets, which is, by the way, most marriages. That is I'm so glad they're talking about that.
No, and that's why you and I both agree that the Real Housewives of Miami is the best show on Bravo right now. By far the best Housewives we're getting, until we see what happens on Jersey. But it really speaks to the production and the cast. And one thing I will always give props to that I think a lot of people don't understand, the marriage between the producers and the cast is always going to equal into a great show. And if you housewives or reality stars think you don't need a producer, you are going to flop. And if you producers don't believe that you need to study this world and follow the reality and dig deeper with these stories, and stop thinking like, oh, she threw her shade, that's a great scene, you're going to fail miserably, and so is your show. So it works hand in hand. And my hope is that Lisa Rinna getting fired, allegedly, is truly a call to action for these women to say, you know what, we have to give something different, or else we may be put on pause or on ice.
Yeah.
So that's our opinion. So Kate, I thank you so much for hopping on. This is breaking news. Let the world know they can find you, follow you, and support your amazing podcast.
First of all, we're the worst. Like, we just like we're going down so many alleys. Excuse me. Reality Life with Kate Casey. I think I'm going to four days a week. So yeah. So anyway, you can listen to me wherever you listen to podcasts. I've got a weekly must watch list, which is a must. Check that out. It comes out every Monday, and it tells you what to watch in unscripted TV. So documentaries, docuseries, and reality television. It's available at katecasey.substack.com, and bonus episodes at patreon.com/KateCasey.
You heard it here first. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.